Q this morning. Welcome. Of course, AlexNeuman, and our guest this morning, Carlos Emiliani. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Jerry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing
Carlos.
very well. Good morning to you, Carlos. Now, when I say taking off a bit more than you can chew, I mean, just look at me. These aren't retro to me, when we're talking about turntables. These were the in gear. These were the kit of its time. So I'm looking forward to this. Where do you want to start?
I always enjoy being not the smartest person in the room. And
Well, you must always be very happy.
I am generally happy in that regard. And I learn a lot. And I believe I have two people here connected by one thing, in this case, the love for this kind of technology, the technology that I grew up with, that you pretty much made a career out of, and that is making a comeback in very, very interesting ways. And I was on my show, on my TV show, we talked about retro tech, retro from the point of view of most of my audience, which is, the under 30s. And for them...
Okay. That's enough of that. Under 30s.
Exactly.
Oh, good grief.
And they see this as retro tech, and we see it as just plain tech.
I just look at it. I look back at a couple of models. I'm going to be talking about one in specific, which I absolutely love. I mean, I'm still in love with that equipment. It's not retro. It's today. It's what is the difference between a turntable made back then and a turntable made back now? The basics are the same. The output, the electronic system may be a little bit different in getting it out, but the principle is exactly the same.
The principle is the same. But I'll tell you two things, and maybe Carlos can chime in as well.
Sure.
He probably knows a lot more about this, but there are two things that come to mind. First, we no longer use tubes for amplification, and that's unfortunately that's not necessarily a good thing, but you can get tube amplifiers today that give you a much warmer sound. And remember, both the English and the Spanish language are not rich enough to describe these audio terms in regular audio terms. We speak about warmth, we speak about spectrum, we speak about sound stages and things like that. These are difficult to describe in words. They are more easily described by actually just sitting down and listening, which is what I'm planning to do later today. I've got this little baggie here with, I don't know if you recognize the album cover.
No.
That's Queen's A Day at the Races, one of 1975's, and one of Queen's finest albums. So I've got a bottle of wine in the fridge, and I've got this, and I got a turntable. And the special effects don't show up there.
Your turntable behind you is cutting your arms off.
Exactly.
And, unfortunately, your face is still there, but
yeah.
Cutting your
Well,
I couldn't recognize the cover because as you held it up.
Just the special effects
But
thing.
I do like your special effects, actually.
I have to work on that.
Let me cut in real quick here, guys. Also, to complement on Alex's comments, not only that, but also the turntables nowadays also have a Bluetooth connection and also USB connections, so you can record to your computer the music for your vinyl record. Okay, so that's a new one.
Here's a question. If it's going by Bluetooth, isn't it going digitally?
Yeah, but that's totally against the nature of the vinyl. But
Sure.
Technologies nowadays go that route. It's not necessarily a very good thing, but it's what it is.
I mean, it's a little bit like there is a turntable on the market which was rather expensive. I think about $15,000, which actually read your vinyl using a laser. And I said, but hang on, that is digital. That is not analog. So you're paying $15,000 for something which really doesn't do much.
It kind of does and it kind of doesn't. Let me address both issues, the Bluetooth thing and the laser thing, in a way that not only you as experts can appreciate, but also our audience. The good thing about analog is that it is in fact analog, and it's a direct it's a direct representation of what's on the groove on the record, which was what was recorded on the master, which was what was recorded in the studio. That being said, the fact that a lot of these turntables, and the one that I have here is one of them, support things like Bluetooth, is a good thing, in quotes, for people under 30 who don't have a preamp, who don't have like an actual sound system. They probably have a sound bar, or they have a very simple speaker setup or whatever, and they just want the experience of sitting down, plonking one of these vinyl records on the thing, pressing one button, and having a listening experience that is equal or slightly, very slightly better than what they get with high-resolution streaming audio. If you're using, for example, Spotify or whatever, you got a certain level of quality that may be a little bit above CDs, but a little bit below what you would get with an analog record on an analog turntable with an analog amplifier, which is even a little bit better if that amplifier is a tube amplifier as opposed to a transistor amplifier. And that's one thing. I think it makes it more accessible to people. If you do sit down and listen, you'll feel that the bass isn't as rich, that the audio is a little bit shifted to the tinny treble side and so on. But it is going to be loads better than listening to a CD or a streaming audio if, and this is very important, your Bluetooth speaker or your Bluetooth amplifier, your Bluetooth home theater supports a higher resolution audio codec. When Bluetooth was created for things like listening to a phone call, it was created basically for very low resolution. I mean, it's like talking to through a tube or something. But
Hey, that sounded like Andreas yesterday, didn't it? Yeah, he was talking through a tube. They're called Apple EarPods or something.
yeah, they're really bad at that part. I mean, they're good for picking out your voice if you're walking in a windy place with a lot of people. But for like regular audio, for what we're doing right now, the mic you have, which is probably 10 times the price of the one that I have, which is pretty good, it's an Audio Technica, is much better at that. Now, that being said, if you're going to listen to one of these records and you want the full experience, it's always better to hook it up to a standard preamp and so on. But I think this makes it very much more accessible, especially to that younger generation, which has higher resolution, either headphones. For example, I've got these from Microsoft that support aptX audio, which is high resolution audio, and I'll get a much better result out of that. It won't be exactly the same, but if I'm not like an audiophile or a bat or a whale, I think it's going to be good enough to actually enjoy it.
I mean, let me ask you, Carlos. I mean, you have you've got your store, you've got the vinyl, and by the way, there's also another place. Not wishing to advertise anybody, but Volumen Brutal in Multicentro have quite a selection of vinyl as well, old vinyl. But why? I understand what you're saying, Alex. I don't know if you would agree with me, Carlos, but why would you want to go and buy vinyl if you're going to listen to it through Bluetooth? I mean, the whole thing about this, and we've always said, is that when, an audiophile, my father was an audiophile, we had the equipment. If you have a weak link in the chain, you're not going to get the benefit. If you want to listen to vinyl, it's got to go through a good amp, it's got to go through a good set of speakers. Otherwise, you're just not getting the benefit.
I think, complimenting on Alex once again, it's the thing with Bluetooth, it's that if you're an audiophile, you're not going to get the Bluetooth option anyway, okay? So the Bluetooth, it's more like an entry for people that are beginning to collect vinyl. And it's like a segue, once you get the turntable with the commodities of Bluetooth and you have a Bluetooth speaker lying around and you can use it, then you get to appreciate the real benefit and the real possibilities of the vinyl, and then you go the correct way. The correct.
But I mean, it's not cheap though, is it really, to get into this anymore? I mean, I was going to tell you. I mean, I've got a picture here in the studio of me in 1968, working in the studio with two decks, both the same, which to me is still the bee's knees, and that's the Thorens TD124. That is incredible. That was a beautiful, it was so pioneering for us, because before we had that, I think we were using Technics. And you used to use, the piece of velvet or a piece of cloth between your album and the deck. And, that was, you sort of spun the disc, you went back a turn, then you held the cloth, and then you started the turntable. And when you were ready, you just let go and off it went. And then Thorens came out with the TD124, and it used to lift the platter about 1 millimeter off the actual turntable. And you just flicked a little switch at the side, and it would just lower it straight onto the turntable. That was quite innovative. But I was looking because they actually, in actual fact, Thorens have got a modern version of the TD 124. They call it the 124DD, which is beautiful. It looks exactly the same, but of course it's got the photo outputs at the back and XLR outputs. Doesn't have Bluetooth, but then if you want Bluetooth, you're not going to pay $11,500 for a turntable, and that is scary. I mean, that is an awful lot of money. Is it going to do the job any better than an Audio Technica?
I mean, the thing is, how long do you want to go? Because you can get a turntable for $125. Mm-hmm. You can get a turntable for $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. Mm-hmm. It's more of a decision. But the entry level, it's okay for most people, because at first they're not gonna hear any difference. Mm-hmm. Of course, there is a difference. But I mean, of course, high-end turntables, they're not gonna offer Bluetooth or any of that, because the idea is to take advantage of most of the analog advantages of vinyl. Because what's the thing with entry-level turntables? For a turntable system to work, you need a turntable, an amplifier, a preamplifier, amplifier, and speakers. And like Alex said, the thing with entry-level turntables is that they include the preamp in the turntable. And most speakers that we have at home are already amplified. Okay, so that's like a way of entering in the world of collecting vinyl in a budget-friendly kind of way. But the appeal of vinyl, even so, more than the vinyl record, than the turntable, I mean, is the thing that you have this collective piece of art in a way, because you get a cover, an album cover that's in a big, that it's presented in a big way, that you won't get in streaming services or in a CD. You get also, very frequently actually, you get additional media. For example, you get inserts in the jacket. You get exclusive pictures, or maybe some different tracks that are not released elsewhere. So that's kind of the appeal for the entry-level people, and also for enthusiasts and audiophiles.
And you get little pops and hisses as well, which is all part of the. I mean, modern tracks today, they actually put that on the tracks, so it sounds like a vinyl record.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Most people think that you have to hear those pops and clicks, and that's not right. If you take proper care of your record, if you clean it the proper way,
that's the key. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to take care of it, because vinyl records are very sensitive to static, and that's one of the things. When dust get into the grooves, that's when you begin to hear the pops and clicks. But if you take proper care of your records and you clean them, then the record should sound just as clean as a digital recording, but varying quality, if that makes sense. Of course, that is to be determined and to be experienced in real life, like Alex said.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to add is that the laser pickup that you mentioned has the advantage of not touching the record itself. So there's no static, and there's no actual degrading of the signal over time, because every time you pass through that groove, the needle will try to do the least damage possible, but is actually just carving that out of atom by atom. So it will wear out at some point eventually. That being said, the laser will not touch it, and it does so at such a high resolution that you'd need another $15,000 piece of equipment just to detect the difference between a needle and a laser in that regard. And that's the thing about the digital part.
So then so when this thing is reading your album, your disc, what's it converting it to? Minuses, zeros, and ones, isn't it?
But at such a high resolution that you would have to get another device that's as expensive to tell them apart. It's
so
like
what is the resolution?
I think it's like hundreds of bits and thousands of kilohertz and whatever. It's much higher than it has to be, so that whatever comes out is better. Remember grain in photography? The size of the actual grain in the photographic paper and so on, which defined how fuzzy or not something was. Well, imagine something with grains the size of an atom. You can't really tell from like something that's been, like the original image or whatever. So that's kind of the thing. It's good enough in the digital sense, which consumer grade equipment isn't, to be able to actually replace analog in most, if not all, settings. It's like when they do movie scores and they do digital recordings for like studios and whatever, they usually use much higher, like exponentially higher resolutions, so that you can actually consider this, even though it's digital, a lossless recording. The problem with Bluetooth is not so much the resolution itself, it's the compression that it goes to. And that's why if you have one of these turntables and you're a millennial and you don't have any amplifiers or whatever, you can use it with a regular powered Bluetooth speaker, and it will just sound a little bit better than Spotify. But once you kind of graduate, because this is kind of like a gateway drug, to an actual real equipment, you could just use your line out and connect it, and it's going to sound even better. So I think, and also when you move out of your parents' basement or whatever, because then you'll have a little bit more space for that amplifier. I mean, right now I'm trying to find some space for where I'm going to put my turntable, so I haven't settled yet. But it's kind of a gateway drug in that sense.
Which turntable have you got?
I've got the Audio-Technica LP60 SPBT, which comes with a Bluetooth speaker. It's kind of a set. And I'm probably not going to use the Bluetooth speaker for that. Maybe if I want to listen to it in the balcony or something like that, I'll just move that speaker there. But I'm going to wire it to my sound system.
And I would also point out, and I don't know, Carlos, would you agree? But you've got to have a particular ear to be able to tell the difference.
Sure.
Otherwise, you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars and say, oh, this is great, but not really appreciate what the difference is. And I think that's one of the things where people get, oh yes, I'm going to buy vinyl, I'm going to do this, and again I say what I said before, it's only as good as what you put it through. It depends. We used to even the quality of the wire that we used to use for the speakers came into play. What kind of speakers you use, and speakers again are very personal. They sound different. One set of speakers will sound great to one person. And not so great for another. Me personally, even with headphones, I don't like bass. I don't want a boom, 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 boom in my ear. I want to hear the music. I pay a lot of money for my headphones. I pay, I say a lot of money, but $300-400 for a set of headphones sometimes, because I want to hear what is going out. I want to hear what the music is, not my headphones interpretation of what I want. And this applies to speakers as well. So it is personal. So, before you go out and spend a lot of money, listen, go along and see Carlos and listen to some vinyl there. And because I was one of the people, having worked with vinyl professionally when I was working radio before, and things like Tamberg, reel-to-reel, decks, and Rackall heterodyne super receivers, and I was interested in what was happening with the CD, and I thought this is going to be interesting. And I was one of the first people. I bought it in Japan. It was a Hitachi CD player. And I took it home, and for about 3 months, all I could do was open and close the door because you couldn't buy a CD anywhere. And was actually sort of in the press because I was one of the first people at HMV store in Oxford Street buying CDs, which there wasn't much of a choice of. The difference? Well, the difference was that there were no clicks and hisses and pops, which was good. Can I really tell the difference listening to a CD and listening to vinyl? Possibly, because I'm sort of used to it, but not necessarily.
No, but that's the thing. That's the thing, because there even have been studies that say that the human average ear can no longer differentiate above 320 kbps, and that's pretty much a standard high quality digital audio, and of course vinyl goes along those lines. So you cannot, it's very difficult that you can hear the difference. But once again, it's the experience. What's the thing with digital streaming services nowadays that people tend to hear just a single? In my opinion, they don't fully appreciate the extent of the creation of the artist, in the sense that the artist created an album that it's track listed in a way. This song goes after this song because of something. Okay, so that is kind of lost in the process of digital, because you get to consume so much music that you forget about it. You don't have to make a decision. You only get to open whichever app you have and go shuffle, and that's it. And you forget about it. And with record, you kind of interact in a very present way with the music. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about it. You have to take care of your records, and they'll outlive you, probably. And that's one thing that doesn't happen with digital music. There's a new single release on Friday, and you forget about it in 2 months.
Okay, but and exactly the same applies, of course, to photographs. I mean, we now take thousands and thousands of photographs, which stay on our camera, and that's it. You probably never look at them again. But the thing is there with regards to the vinyl. Yeah, I agree with you. But that's also the music industry's fault, because now everything comes out as a single, and they bring out an album, which is every single that they've released so far from the album, which to me is a waste of money. I mean, I buy the albums, I buy my music online, and I have this thing, and I like to try and find new music for me, and I go on and I can listen to the tracks. I listen to track number 1. If that keeps me going, I listen to number 2, number 3. If I like the first 3 tracks, I will buy the album, because I say this is, this is creative, it's different. I don't want to hear track 1, track 2, and track 3 sounding like the same thing with, starting every single track and whatever. But that is the difference now. They release them as singles. And when you buy the album, 90% of it is singles. So why buy it?
Yeah.
When we go back to the days you're talking about, and the vinyl we're talking about, absolutely right. They created, I mean, I'm a great fan of Moody Blues. Their albums were like storybooks. Deep Purple, these people, they made sort of creations, like you say, with an ongoing theme. That was it, and you perhaps got a single out of the album, which was released. So the music industry has a lot to blame for this.
Sure. But I think even though it's completely true what you're saying, we can take responsibility about that. There are a lot of bands nowadays that actually tend to release their albums with 1 or 2 singles. It's not the most popular music, that's right, but there are people out there. You have to kind of cherry pick your music taste, or refine it a little bit, but it's available, it's out there. And I think that's kind of the beauty. Once you get into this world, you go down a rabbit hole, and you go further and further and further. And you begin to appreciate all of those things.
I think it's nice that it kind of also makes the artist have a better stake in whether an album sells or not, in the sense that they get I think more of an incentive to come out with good songs that they can package in an album, so that it crosses that threshold. I remember, for example, buying CDs back in the 90s, where I wouldn't buy a CD unless I had like 3 or 4 decent songs out of it. And if not, I would just say, you know what? I'm sorry, but I'm gonna wait for a greatest hits or something, and then I'll buy that, because then 9 out of 10, or sometimes 11 out of 13 songs were actually the ones that I wanted to listen to. So I think that's also kind of an incentive, and also a disincentive for things like the artist selling us the same song 3 times. I remember a 1995 sketch, I think 94, from Saturday Night Live, where they made fun by coming out with a parody of greatest hits albums by Aerosmith that included Crazy, Crying, and Amazing, and then Amazing Crazy, Amazing Crazy Crying, Crying Amazing Crazy, and so on, because it's almost, musically speaking, the same song, just with different lyrics and a little different riff here and there. So I think that's also good for the artist, that they can come out with this, and as Carlos said, with special, palpable things, not to offend people who like NFTs or whatever. I mean, physical things that you can hold in your hand, which at least for this generation is important. Maybe the next generation will have other kinds of unique things to include in their music and their whatever. But I think that vinyl has still got a long way to go, and probably will outlive us, as Carlos said.
Well, for me personally, I'm so good. I'm so grateful to see it back, because I do have a love for vinyl. That's how I used to work. I used to work with vinyl. I mean, things, there isn't really, although I still manage to do it, there isn't really a reason to do a bad radio program these days. I mean, in the days of vinyl, you had to literally go through the whole library looking for the music you wanted, and it was all catalogued. And then you'd go into a booth, you played the tracks that you wanted to put in the show. Then you'd have to go, we didn't have internet, so you'd have to, I know your music off by heart anyway. Most of that information you got from the sleeves of the album and everything like that. You actually had to work for a living. I mean, now when I'm talking, we were talking earlier about, you used to queue up using the piece of velvet under the record. Now I have 3, 4, 5 cue points that I want to use, and I put it and I just touch a button, and away it all goes. So there are advantages to the technology, but I miss it. I'm sometimes thinking about, what if I just sort of got rid of these two software controlling decks, which I use here for the program, and one day just put a couple of turntables on there, and go back to basics and see how it worked out. I might do that one day.
I'd be glad to be there. I'd love to be there.
That would be
just
fun.
To see the master at work.
But the technology is it is improving. I understand what you're saying about using Bluetooth. It's just, for me personally, if I was to go to vinyl, I would love to go and spend $11,500 on my Thorens TD-124DD, because apart from anything else, I got such great memories of them. And of course, in those days as well, you would buy your turntable, but then you would go out and buy a separate arm. You would know, because the arm itself was very technical as well. It was like one of these Keith Robinson things with little weights and strings and so on and so forth. So you used to choose your arm. You used to choose your cartridge, the cartridge that you were going to use. In my day, if I remember rightly, Shaw were the main ones at the time. But you're in the business, Carlos. What is about? I mean, if I wanted to go out today and I wanted to buy a good turntable, what would it be, and how much would it cost me?
That's the thing, that you have a plenty big spread of options, in the sense that you can spend $125 or you can spend $25,000. You have a lot of brands selling turntables, and good turntables. You have Audio-Technica, you have Dana, you have Fluence, you have Project, you have Clear Audio, you have...
Are Technics still around, or are they gone?
Yeah, but it's not that common to have them around, It's not that popular anymore. But the thing is, within every brand, you have 20, 25 different turntables that vary vastly in price, okay? So let's say that you're beginning to collect vinyl. I would recommend an LP60, an Audio-Technica, or an equivalent, a Denon equivalent. You want to step up, you can go two different routes, high fidelity or DJ. If you want to go DJ, then you go for, speaking Audio-Technica, an LP120X. You want to go hi-fi, you go LP3. There are maybe Fluence, maybe Project Debut Carbon. And of course, after, the thing is, if you buy a mid-range turntable, you can then customize it. You can change the cables, you can change the mat, you can change the stylus, you can change the tone arm, you can change the counterbalance, and you go
and where
as far as you want.
Where am I going to find those in Panama?
Okay, you can find, you can reach out at www.mylongplay.com, and we're happy to help you, not only to sell anything, but if you have any doubt, you can reach at us and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And we have a plenty good variety of new records, turntables, accessories. We're here
I might be paying you a visit.
Sure, we'll be happy.
Or you can go online as well. They've got a mylongplay.com.
No, I'm touchy-feely.
I know, that's why we're doing this over Zoom.
Yeah, well, trust me, Albert, Alex, it's been a long time since I've touched you, and that's fine. But okay, guys, look, we're coming towards the end. So you have a store, right, Carlos?
Yeah, we have an online store, and we have a showroom at Via Argentina inside Café Unido.
Oh, okay.
But most of our stock is in the online store. But I would like to invite you, Gerry, since you like to have a physical interactions with records. I would like to invite you on July 17th to Record Store Day. We will have a physical event with DJs playing on vinyl all day long, and we will have most of our record collection there for people to check. We would love to have you there.
What time? I'm putting that on the calendar right now.
Hey, your name's not Gerry.
You can call me Gerry that day.
That would be great. I look forward to that. Yeah.
It will be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Oh, 12 hours. Okay, excellent. Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds right up my my street. Mary Lou, actually, in fact, she was talking to me yesterday when we were talking about vinyl yesterday. For some reason, Mary Lou said that she had quite a collection. She says, I also need to buy a turntable to listen to all my vinyl. So there we are, Mary Lou. We'll have to go and sort it all out. So I'll send you the link to Carlos. My guy, well, look, thank you. Thank you so very much. And
thank you so much for having me.
I shall go away and keep dreaming about my Thorens, the TD 124 TD. Alex, as always, thanks so very much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You guys that take care of yourself. Let me just find something small. This is small enough. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.